The following is protected under fair use. Also, I'm back, baby! We're back reviewing Yugioh Vrains because work was merciful with me and left me get off early on a Wednesday or Thursday night. But that's not important. What is important is not only am I back doing this, but Yu-Gi-Oh's back to some like legit, serious, heavy themes and stuff. Now, yes, up until this point we've had some serious moments with Aoi going into a coma and everything and everyone reacting to Aoi being in a coma and Yusaku and Akira both going in their different ways to get Aoi out of a coma. You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say they might as well have just made the show about Aoi, but that's not important. What is important is that to up the game as we go into our more serious story elements, everything has had to follow suit, and I think all of that's been done wonderfully. But first thing I'm going to talk about, I will say the one thing I have to say about 2 or 3 episodes ago now, when Yusaku dueled the hand destruction robot and Aoi took out the other one. The duel in that one was a breath of fresh air. Oh no, I'm not talking about Yusaku's duel where he once again opened up the perfect hand for a specific situation and then used his ability to pull a card out of his ass to save him. I'm talking about the duel between Aoi and her robot. Now, yes, it was basically a quick one-turn type thing, and yes, you could always make the argument Aoi drew just the right hand as well. But the difference is that that duel was refreshing because it felt like an actual duelist, okay, an actual fictional duelist, but an actual duelist using an actual deck, relying on the actual cards she built the deck with. And not only that, she uses trick stars the way they're meant to be used. Like, that is a burn for a lot of crazy chain damage FTK deck, and she uses it as such. And it was also a lot of fun. One thing I've really enjoyed is that Aoi's voice actress changes the voice when she's Aoi, like she makes it more heightened and pitched. Like, the thing is, it makes it, it puts into the fact that Blue Angel is Aoi getting to be sort of the fun, bombastic person she feels she can't be in her normal life, so that's a nice touch there. But also, it just makes the character a lot of fun. Like that moment where she's like, oh no, I'm gonna lose. Gotcha. I loved that. Like, I didn't realize until that duel how much I missed fun stuff in my card game action show. But moving on from that, because honestly, these past 2 episodes have been amazing. I have no serious complaints, any complaints. Like, first up, I love the music. Like, has anyone been noticing this? The score has really jumped. Honestly, none of the tracks in Vrains have really impressed me. But to be fair, we're coming off the Arc 5 score, which is amazing. But these past 2 episodes, that very sort of eerie, science fiction-y, very computery music that sort of plays like during Yusaku's flashbacks and just when he enters the mainframe room, it's got this such creepy feel to it. It really does sort of put you in the mood of this situation as Yusaku is kind of torn down and as Akira really shows just how powerful he really is and stuff. And I quite love this whole thing quite a bit. First up, because it's the most straightforward thing here, the Aoi Akira backstory. They did something very clever. When we first learned the backstory about these two way back in episode 8, and it was like, our parents died, and, you know, I've been working to take care of Aoi. I think everyone just assumed it was that simple. They were rich, and then he just took over the family business. Learning the whole backstory of how bad the two had it, because it does several things. First up, it makes you frickin' love these two even more than you might already do, because they had to go through stuff. This wasn't just a standard rich kids who had to do something a little bit hard. Like, no, like you see them and they're on the street and little Aoi holding her evil swarm. I forget what one that is, but that's a nice little touch. But it's just such a great little scene because it tells you so much without having to spoon feed you everything. You learn the specifics of the backstory. You learn that Akira had to become a hacker. You learn that they were on the streets. You learn that he had to work his way up. And again, it doesn't tell you everything. Like, you can figure that Akira's cold nature comes from having to do bad things and maybe he's never fully accepted it. You can read into the fact that this is why Aoi is so quiet is because she's used to having to be quiet and just do what Akira tells her, like just to get by. And it gives you such a respect for these two. Like, they had to earn their way to the top. It's not like they were rich and everything was handed to them. No, like, Akira had to try really hard and had to sacrifice basically, like, his entire, like, I don't want to say childhood because he was almost an adult already, but you guys get what I'm saying. Because, I mean, I'm 24 years old, and I'm going to be flat out honest. Doing this is the closest thing I have to responsibilities in life. I really genuinely am a goofball. But no, he had to work hard. He had to raise this little girl who technically he's not even related by blood to. And I like that they just flat out say it. No, we were put out on the streets because all these other strangers were just evil assholes. Like, it's this sort of dark side to humanity, and it's very blunt, and it's presented in a way that's very straight and relatable. It's not like an evil card came in and possessed them or something. It's just unfortunate realities of life that just kind of happened. It makes the characters more relatable, it makes them more likable, and also it really explains why Akira is doing this the way he's doing it. Like that whole sort of scene where Yusaku walks in, Akira's like, I got the information, I can't give it to you, we're gonna duel. The whole time I'm thinking, oh, this is just to make time pass. It's like, no, like, Akira's kind of right here. Yusaku is the one in the wrong. Akira's like, look, you're probably just a kid. Let me handle this. I'm an adult. I have money. I'm smarter than you. And it brings up a great part of Yusaku, and that is that Yusaku isn't a hero. He's not doing this for justice. This is about revenge. This is about anger. And I love how they don't hide this. Like, what did I keep saying was one of my biggest problems with Yuya in the last one? Was that he was lame, he was bland, and I thought that, like a lot of people others said, was that his whole message about smiling was very hand-fisted. Part of it is that I felt like Yuya was never really questioned. No one really, I felt, got in his way and sort of put him to having to prove his ideals. You get a bunch of little things, but I never felt like no one was directly there to say, you're an idiot. Like, no one, there's never that moment where I felt like he was really tested on a moral level. Mostly because every time they had a situation, they screwed it over. But no, this is directly saying our main character is wrong. And that's not always easy to do, especially in something where you got to market this main character for the next 3 years and use him to push a product. They're taking a risk here, and it works out so perfectly. I love how every scene shows how Akira is probably right here. And even though we're seeing Akira be good, technically, it also sort of keeps his personality in check. Is there probably an easier way to get Playmaker on his side? Most likely. Is he going to do it? No, because Akira's nature is controlling. His nature is to be in charge. His nature is to have everyone do what he says. His intent and what he wants might be the right thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going about it the right way. It's not trying to make me feel that one of these guys is right. It is simply saying one has one method, one has the other. Whichever you choose to follow, there is a good case presented for both. Yusaku is erratic, and he just goes for it, and they even address that. Like, when he dueled the AI flat out said his dueling is erratic and all this stuff. Like, it's all addressing that, at the end of the day, Yusaku is not a perfect person. He's not amazing. He's not infallible. He has his faults, and I love the anger he's getting. I love that sort of this he's not understanding. And when we see the backstory, like, it's legitimately creepy. Like, first up, I love the animation on that. It looked kind of like a brain neuron thing. I'm assuming it's the origins of Vrains or Ignis or whatever. But I loved how it moved. I loved the sound effects. I loved the CGI for it. It was very effective in how creepy it allowed it to move. And you just see, like, little kid Yusaku suffering and miserable and in pain, and how he gets out of that and he never gets over it. A lot of people are comparing it to, like, a Bruce Wayne or a Punisher or something like that. And all those are very fine, but I just focus so much more on what this sort of implies. Now, Yusaku went through, what, a year and a half of torture. That's a lot, but let's not forget, he's had more time in his life where he can just be an innocent child, and he addresses this. He flat out said, look, I tried to get into it, but it always pushed him back. Now multiply that by 10 years. It's no wonder he has such serious issues. And again, the whole show has been building to this. Never from day one did I ever feel that they were trying to force me to believe this guy's ideology is right, that this guy doesn't have some serious issues. The whole show has been addressing this. Again, take this back to Yuya, where he was right all the time. Like, here what's going on is Yusaku's getting some pushback by an actual character, as opposed to Yuya, who it felt like was only ever up against enablers who were just there to prove his point. Like, it's such a so much better character, and I love it so much. The duel is really good. Like, I like the fact that it feels very focused, very straightforward. I like that there's sort of this level of, I guess, dignity or maybe respect when a master duel happens. That's sort of this, okay, we have this fast-paced thing we do for getting out of jams, but for someone to challenge someone for a standard 5 zones, like draws and main phase 2s are all done correctly and all that stuff, you really do get this sense that there's a sense of weight to it. And I think it's because I know a lot of people are starting to get sick of the speed duels and the skills. Someone even brought that up, I think, 2 or 3 videos ago, where they flat out said they're starting to get sick of Yusaku and his duel style. I am too, but I found this was very fun and very refreshing, and just a fascinating character study into what it means to go through tragedy and to sort of move forward of it. I do think it was done on purpose, that we learned all the 3 central characters in this scene's backstories basically at the same time. We were given a little bit of Yusaku's ahead of time, we were given a little bit of Aoi and Akira's. But with this, learning such big pivotal parts, essentially, we learned about what has been the past 10 years for these 3 people. That is what we learned about in these past few episodes, and I feel like it's so expertly presented to us in that sort of sense that this is pain, this is suffering. It comes from the same place. It comes from tragedy. It comes from going through something. But what separates a Yusaku from an Aoi, or Yusaku from Akira, or even Aoi from Akira, is how they choose to go about dealing with it, how they choose to move forward about it. And I like thinking about the implications of Aoi in this scene as well, because you think about this for a minute. Aoi had to, in a lot of ways, did grow up similar to Yusaku, being sort of thrown around and just sort of being expected to be this way. And I do hope we explore with her what's going on. I think they will. I don't think they wouldn't make it that Aoi comes out there and she's the one who's able to convince Akira to get a little insight into what happened. I don't think that would be done if it's not supposed to lead to something. I'm having a really good feeling about this. I'm having a lot of great faith in this, and this has just been a great hour and a half of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's really reminded me why I love this franchise, how it tries, how it wants to push the boundaries, how it's willing to take risks and be different, especially in 2017, which as far as anime has gone, has been a year I like to call it competent but boring. Everything's been made well. I can't say there's one series I've seen this year where it's like this year's Ace Attorney or this year's Engaged to the Unidentified, where it just looks awful on all fronts. But I haven't been super psyched about anything. I can count the anime that have really gotten me like intent on my hand, and these past 2 episodes kind of did that for me, and I love it a lot. So tell me what you think of this in the comment section below. I'm really curious to see what people have to say about everything that's been going on in this series. And as for the TCG question of the week, this one I've been sort of searching my soul on. Since the ban list, a lot of people are really hyping Pendulum Magicians. Like, they think it's going to be a top tier deck, at least until Spirals come out, because Spirals are pretty strong in the OCG, and honestly, if you know my thoughts on Spirals, it kind of pisses me off. But do you think Pendulum Magicians are as strong as everyone's saying, or do you think people are gravitating to just the fact that it's one of the more recent powerful decks come out? Don't get me wrong, I love the deck. I'm still kind of in on my World Chalice for now, but I don't know, between how the pendulum mechanic kind of got nerfed, and now that we're in a slower meta, I know a lot of people are considering more trap cards, and just a lot of spell and trap destruction like Unending Nightmare and Cosmic Cyclone and Anti-Spell and all this stuff. I don't know. Tell me what you think about that in the comment section below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and let's see where all this goes.